Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast, English Listening Practice podcast topic name is 50 plus C2 Vocabulary Listening Practice. We are about to embark on, a truly unique exploration today. It's a deep dive into how active listening can fundamentally transform your grasp of advanced C2 level English vocabulary. You've brought us some incredible material, and our mission really is to extract the most potent insights for you, helping you not just understand these sophisticated words, but truly embed them into your fluency for confident, real-world use.
Indeed. You know, at the C2 Proficiency level, the game really changes. It's no longer just about knowing a word's dictionary meaning. This is about sensing the subtle connotations, the intricate nuances of sophisticated language. You won't master these words by simply memorizing lists. The real key, the true path to mastery, involves understanding these words within their authentic living context. They shift and deepen in meaning based on how and where they're actually spoken.
That makes perfect sense. So, why does listening practice matter so profoundly when you're aiming to grasp these higher level words? Many learners might wonder, can't I just read them in a book and get the same effect? But there's a vital difference, isn't there, between the written and the spoken word when we're talking C2 vocabulary?
Oh, there's an enormous difference. Consider this. A word on a page, it presents a fixed visual, right? But when spoken, it becomes dynamic. Listening allows you to truly recognize the authentic pronunciation, the nuanced intonation, the stress patterns that infuse a word with its true vitality in natural flowing speech. It's not just the individual sounds, but how they blend, contract, and shift in connected discourse. This auditory recognition is, indispensable. Because if you can't readily identify a word when it's articulated quickly in a conversation, its written form loses much of its utility. For real-time comprehension and spontaneous application, you miss the beat, the rhythm, the emotional weight that only listening can really convey.
So it's about grasping the rhythm and the unwritten cues, not just the letters on the page. That's a powerful distinction.
Yeah, absolutely. And beyond the mechanics of sound, listening provides the indispensable context. Words almost never exist in isolation. Hearing a word embedded within a conversation, maybe a stirring speech or a probing interview that offers you the critical situational and conversational cues, the ones that illuminate its precise meaning and appropriate usage. The same word can carry vastly different shades of nuance depending on its environment, and only listening unveils those subtle shifts. More broadly, it's not merely about the dictionary's definition, but about how a word truly functions, what role it plays, what emotional charge it carries, its overall semantic weight within a larger idea or an ongoing discussion. You absorb its true purpose and impact.
I see what you mean. It's like discovering not just a single thread, but how that thread is woven into the entire tapestry. That holistic understanding seems incredibly valuable for C2. And then there's the aspect of long-term retention, isn't there? That's key too.
Precisely. Consistent exposure to words within authentic, engaging audio materials dramatically enhances your long-term retention. When you encounter words repeatedly, used naturally and organically, it reinforces their meanings in a far more potent way than, say, mechanical rote memorization. Your brain establishes deeper, more robust neural connections when the learning is integrated into a dynamic, meaningful experience. It transitions from feeling like academic study to a natural absorption of language as it's genuinely used, embedding it deeply into your permanent memory. You're not just remembering, you're internalizing.
Okay, so what does this all mean for you, the learner, in a practical sense? It highlights that curating the right kind of listening material is almost as crucial as the act of listening itself. Imagine your listening time as a targeted language infusion. Think about tuning into resources like well-produced podcasts, compelling audiobooks, or insightful academic lectures. These aren't just for casual enjoyment. They are rich, immersive linguistic environments specifically designed to give you that authentic, high-level language exposure. While you're listening, make it an active exercise. Truly pay attention to how these sophisticated words are deployed, how they subtly shift meaning, and how they contribute to the overall message. All right, here's where our deep dive truly begins. We're going to navigate through a curated selection of advanced C2 vocabulary words. For each one, we'll discuss its core meaning, offer a clarifying example, and crucially, provide a specific listening tip. One that illuminates how hearing the word in context deepens your understanding beyond just seeing it on a page. Get ready to truly sharpen your linguistic toolkit and uncover the layers of these powerful terms. Let's kick things off with perpetual. This term signifies something that never ceases or changes, or something that occurs repeatedly without end. Consider the example. The perpetual noise from the construction site disturbed the neighborhood.
Right. An interesting aspect of perpetual is its ability to convey an unceasing continuity, a sense of something that just doesn't let up. With the construction noise, you're not just describing a sound, you're emphasizing a relentless, unwelcome reality that never truly stops. The auditory experience of something perpetual reinforces its ceaselessness. You feel the ongoing nature of it. It distinguishes it from something merely frequent or continuous. When you hear perpetual applied, say, to a problem, you grasp its persistent, inescapable quality. It really hits differently.
Yeah. So next time you're tuning into an urban planning podcast or maybe a documentary about global challenges, actively listen for this word, especially when they're discussing ongoing issues that seem to have no easy resolution. How is the speaker's tone contributing to that feeling of endlessness? That's something to listen for. Okay, next on our list is pervasive. This describes something that spreads widely throughout an area or a group of people, really permeating every part. Think of our example. The pervasive smell of smoke indicated a fire somewhere nearby.
Yes, when we talk about pervasive, we're emphasizing an influence or presence that genuinely infiltrates and permeates every corner, often subtly, making it quite hard to avoid or escape. Like that smoke, it wasn't confined to one spot, it had seeped into every space, making itself known everywhere. Listening to pervasive in context, perhaps describing a cultural trend or a technological impact, helps you feel the breadth and depth of its reach. How it truly embeds itself, unlike something that is just common or widespread, but maybe less deeply ingrained. The spoken word can convey a subtle sense of almost inescapable saturation,
Right. You'll frequently encounter pervasive when discussing widespread issues like environmental impact, the spread of a particular ideology, or even the ubiquitous presence of certain technologies. Tune into environmental news reports or sociological discussions and pay attention to how speakers convey that sense of total infiltration. Moving on to petulant. This word vividly describes someone who is childishly sulky or bad-tempered. The example provided is, the petulant child threw a tantrum when denied the toy.
The insight here is to distinguish petulant from mere anger. It pinpoints a distinctly childish, often unwarranted, display of irritation or peevishness. The spoken word, particularly when describing someone's tone of voice, captures that specific immaturity, the whine, the abruptness, the sense of a disproportionate response to a minor annoyance. When you hear a character in a drama, or a person in an interview described as petulant, you instantly recognize that peevish, almost pouty quality that signifies a lack of adult composure.
Yeah, that specific childishness. So in family-oriented dramas or even podcasts discussing human behavior or emotional intelligence, keep an ear out for this word. Listen for the subtle vocal cues that accompany such childish frustrations or sulkiness, and how speakers articulate that specific kind of annoyance. Now, philanthropic. This term means actively seeking to promote the welfare of others, often, though not exclusively, through donating money. An excellent example is, her philanthropic efforts helped build schools in underdeveloped regions.
Yes, the real essence of philanthropic lies in the active spirit behind it, a selfless, often large-scale desire to contribute to the greater good of humanity. When you hear this word used in an interview about a foundation or a humanitarian project, listen to the speaker's tone. Often it's one of admiration and respect. It conveys a deep altruistic commitment that goes beyond simple charity, implying organized, impactful endeavors. The way speakers articulate it often carries a weight of positive moral contribution.
Okay, so this makes charity-focused interviews or philanthropy podcasts prime listening material. Pay attention to how the commitment and impact of these efforts are conveyed through the speaker's emphasis on philanthropic actions. Next, we have phlegmatic. Our example sentence offers a clear context. His phlegmatic response to the crisis impressed everyone with his composure.
Right. The striking aspect of phlegmatic is how it describes a serene, almost stoic disposition, especially when faced with chaos or immense pressure. A phlegmatic individual remains calm, collected, and remarkably unagitated, even when others are panicking. When you listen to descriptions of leaders in crisis management, notice if the speaker uses phlegmatic to emphasize a quiet strength, an unshakable steadiness that allows for clear, rational thinking amidst turmoil. The word, when spoken, often carries a sense of admirable, almost rare inner resilience.
Like real composure under fire. So when you're listening to leadership case studies or crisis management talks, key into descriptions of individuals who maintain that exceptional cool head. Hearing phlegmatic in such a narrative really highlights the speaker's admiration for that specific trait. Let's discuss both piety and pious together now, as they are intrinsically linked. Piety is the quality of being religious or reverent, as in the monk's piety was evident in his daily prayers and meditation. And pious is the adjective form, meaning devoutly religious, like the pious woman attended church services every day without fail.
Yes, these terms speak to a profound, internalized faith that permeates one's entire life and choices, extending far beyond mere ritualistic observance. When you hear piety, or pious, used in religious or theological discussions, listen for the depth of devotion conveyed in the speaker's voice. It's about a sincere, unwavering adherence to spiritual principles that guides every action. The reverence in the speaker's voice often mirrors the profound faith being described, adding an emotional layer to the definition.
Got it. So you'll find these words frequently in religious sermons or spiritual podcasts. Pay attention to how speakers differentiate between simple belief and a truly pious commitment, indicated by their tone and emphasis. Moving to pinnacle. This refers to the highest point of development or achievement, the ultimate culmination. Our example, winning the Nobel Prize was the pinnacle of her scientific career.
Exactly. The core insight with pinnacle isn't just success, but reaching the absolute zenith, the ultimate peak of one's potential within a field. When you listen to narratives of remarkable careers or achievements, notice the upward inflection or perhaps a celebratory tone associated with pinnacle. It signifies the crowning moment, often representing years of dedication, where a talent or effort reaches its most exalted, often unrivaled position. Hearing it captures the height of achievement.
Right, the very top. You'll frequently hear pinnacle in award ceremony speeches, biographies of notable figures, or even sports commentary when describing ultimate accomplishments. Listen for the sense of finality and supreme accomplishment it conveys. Our next word is placate, meaning to make someone less angry or hostile, often through concession. For example, the company offered refunds to placate the dissatisfied customers.
The nuance of placate lies in the active, strategic effort to soothe grievances and de-escalate tension. It's not just an apology, but a deliberate action taken to mollify, to bring someone from agitation to a state of calmness. In business or conflict resolution scenarios, when you hear placate, listen for the immediate follow-up, what specific action was taken. The word implies a calculated move to restore equilibrium, and hearing it in an explanation of strategy makes its functional purpose clear. It's about fixing the situation.
Okay, yeah. Customer service training materials or business podcasts discussing conflict resolution will give you ample examples of placate in action. Pay attention to the intention behind the action described. Next, placid. This describes something not easily upset or excited, calm and peaceful. Think of. The placid lake reflected the mountains perfectly in its still waters.
What's compelling about placid is the deep, unruffled serenity it evokes, applicable to both a person's serene demeanor and a natural scene. Unlike other words for calm, placid suggests an inherent peacefulness that profoundly resists disturbance. When you hear it describing a landscape in a nature documentary, the hushed, almost reverent tone of the narrator often mirrors the word's profound stillness. For a person, the calm, measured voice implies a steady, tranquil disposition that is not easily ruffled, which is conveyed in the speaker's delivery.
Like a deep calm. Tune into travel or nature podcasts where serene landscapes are depicted. You'll find placid used to capture that sense of profound, undisturbed calm, often reinforced by the narrator's measured pace. Our next term is platitude. This is a remark or statement that has been used too often to be interesting, original, or thoughtful, like the politician's speech was full of platitudes and empty promises.
Right. The true impact of platitude is felt in its negative connotation. It signifies a speaker avoiding genuine substance, opting for the comfort of the familiar and unchallenging. When you listen to a speech or a debate, and a phrase is delivered with a flat, uninspired intonation, almost as if it's being recited from memory, that's often a spoken clue that it's a platitude. It sounds hollow, lacking any real intellectual weight or emotional resonance, confirming its trite nature. You just feel the emptiness.
Yeah, you can almost hear the lack of conviction. So, next time you're analyzing political speeches or public discourse, actively listen to identify these overused, uninspired phrases. Your ear will pick up on the lack of genuine thought behind them. Then we have plausible, which means seeming reasonable or probable, even if not necessarily true. The example given is, his explanation for being late seemed plausible to the teacher.
Yes, a key distinction with plausible is that something can be entirely believable on the surface without being entirely correct or factual. It speaks to the appearance of truth or likelihood. In a true crime podcast, for instance, when a theory is discussed as plausible, listen to the qualifiers. The speaker uses phrases like, it could be, it stands to reason, or it holds water. This highlights that it's about apparent credibility rather than definitive proof, and hearing those subtle hedging terms reinforces the word's true meaning.
Right, it sounds true, but isn't necessarily proven. True crime podcasts, where theories and explanations are constantly being evaluated, are excellent for hearing plausible in context, especially when hypotheses are being weighed against facts. Our next word is plight. This refers to a dangerous, difficult, or otherwise unfortunate situation, often implying helplessness, as in, the documentary highlighted the plight of refugees fleeing war-torn countries.
The emotional weight of plight is significant. It instantly evokes a strong sense of empathy, drawing attention to urgent human difficulties and profound suffering. When you hear plight used in a news report or a humanitarian appeal, notice the gravity in the speaker's voice. It describes a deeply unfortunate and challenging situation, often faced by vulnerable individuals or groups, conveying a serious predicament that demands concern and action. The solemnity in the spoken word underscores the severity of the situation.
Definitely a heavy word. So when you watch humanitarian documentaries or listen to global news reports, pay attention to the emotional resonance associated with plight. It's a word chosen to elicit deep concern. Next, poignant. This means evoking a keen sense of sadness or regret, often in a deeply moving way. For example, the poignant farewell scene brought tears to the audience's eyes.
Yes, the striking quality of poignant is how it transcends mere sadness to convey a profound, often bittersweet, emotional resonance. It's a sharp, affecting quality that truly lingers, touching the heart or mind deeply. When listening to a movie review, the speaker's tone might soften, or their pace might slow when describing a poignant moment, signaling a scene that holds both beauty and sorrow. Hearing it helps you grasp that complex mix of emotions, a powerful blend of longing, melancholy, and deep impact.
So, not just sad, but movingly sad. Listen to movie reviews or storytelling podcasts, especially when they discuss emotional moments or narratives. Poignant will be used to capture that lingering, deeply moving feeling. Now for pompous. This describes someone who is affectedly and irritatingly grand, solemn, or self-important, often to impress others. The pompous professor looked down on students who asked simple questions.
Right. A core insight into pompous is that it's often a performance born of insecurity, not genuine authority. The truly knowledgeable rarely need to try so hard to impress. It's the ones who are unsure who often lean into that inflated self-importance. When you hear someone described as pompous, listen for the vocal delivery, perhaps an overly formal tone, an exaggerated articulation, or a condescending cadence that signals an attempt to impress rather than genuine confidence. The annoyance in the speaker's voice often mirrors the irritating quality of the pompous individual.
That makes sense. Trying too hard. Tune into academic lectures or even satire shows that poke fun at self-important figures. Listening for that underlying artificiality in tone or word choice will help you pinpoint true pompousness. Our next word is ponderous. It means having great weight, heavy and unwieldy, often slow or clumsy. The ponderous machinery required several workers to operate safely.
Yes, and the interesting aspect of ponderous is its dual application. Not just physical heaviness, but also a metaphorical weight in style or thought that can feel cumbersome. When you hear a description of ponderous machinery, the accompanying sound effects or the speaker's slow, deliberate pronunciation can convey its physical bulk. But if applied to a speech, a ponderous delivery might be slow, labored, and lacking fluidity, making it sound dull or difficult to follow. Hearing the word often reinforces the sense of slowness and difficulty.
Okay, so it can be literally heavy or just heavy going. Listen to engineering or industrial podcasts discussing heavy equipment. Also, consider how the word might be used in literary critiques to describe a dense, slow writing style. Moving on to portent. This is a sign or warning that something momentous or calamitous is likely to happen, often a bad omen. For instance, the economic indicators were seen as a portent of recession.
A portent carries a strong sense of inevitability or foreboding, hinting at a coming shift or difficulty, frequently negative in nature. When you hear portent in economic forecasts or political analyses, listen for the solemnity in the speaker's voice. It's more than just a clue. It's a significant indicator that something major, often unfavorable, is on the horizon, signaling a pivotal moment or a looming crisis. The grave tone associated with it in speech reinforces its ominous nature.
Right, like a dark cloud forming. Follow economic forecasts or financial news for discussions of warning signs. You'll hear portent when significant, often concerning future events are being predicted. Next, posthumous. This describes something occurring, awarded, or appearing after the death of the originator. For example, the author received posthumous recognition for his literary contributions.
Yes, and the compelling element of posthumous is the idea of impact or legacy extending beyond one's lifetime, with recognition finally catching up to worth, often with a bittersweet irony. When you listen to a literary podcast discussing a writer's belated fame, the speaker's reflective or slightly melancholic tone conveys that sense of acknowledgement arriving too late for the individual to experience it. It truly speaks to a lasting influence that transcends mortality.
That sense of too late recognition. Listen to literary podcasts or award ceremony recaps that discuss deceased artists or influential figures. You'll often hear their work or honors described as posthumous, capturing that complex feeling of belated appreciation. Now, pragmatic. This means dealing with things sensibly and realistically in a way that is based on practical rather than theoretical considerations. Her pragmatic approach to problem solving impressed the management team.
Right. A central aspect of pragmatic is its unwavering focus on what genuinely works, on tangible outcomes, rather than abstract principles or idealistic theories. When you hear pragmatic used in business or leadership podcasts, listen for the emphasis on actionable steps, efficiency, and measurable results. The speaker's tone will often convey a sense of grounded wisdom and decisive action, highlighting practicality above all else. It's about finding effective solutions, and the directness of the spoken word often mirrors this straightforwardness.
Focused on results, explore business or leadership podcasts for discussions about practical decision-making and problem-solving. Pragmatic will be a common and vital term. Our next word is precarious. This describes something not securely held or in position dependent on chance, uncertain, or risky. The mountain climber found himself in a precarious position on the cliff.
The striking emotional core of precarious is the feeling of being on the very edge, of potential collapse or great uncertainty that it perfectly captures. It applies not only to physical situations like the climber hanging by a thread, but also to abstract ones, such as a precarious financial situation or a fragile peace. When you hear precarious in an adventure narrative, the narrator's building tension or hushed tone intensifies the sense of instability and risk, underscoring the high degree of vulnerability implied by the word.
That feeling of instability. Listen to adventure or survival stories. You'll often hear precarious used to describe thrilling, dangerous, and uncertain contexts, often with dramatic inflection. Then we have precedent. This is an earlier event or action that is regarded as an example or guide to be considered in subsequent similar circumstances. The court's decision set an important legal precedent for future cases.
Yes, and more broadly, precedent illuminates the profound power of the past to shape the future, particularly within established systems like law, politics, or even corporate policy. It establishes a standard or rule that serves as a model or justification for future actions or decisions. When you hear precedent discussed in a legal analysis, listen for the emphasis on historical impact and its role in influencing new rulings. The weight given to the word often reflects the profound influence it carries over future decisions.
Setting the standard. Tune into legal podcasts or court case analyses. You'll frequently encounter this term when discussing how past rulings continue to shape contemporary jurisprudence. Next, precipitate. This means to cause something to happen suddenly or too soon, often an undesirable outcome. The scandal precipitated the politician's resignation from office.
Right. A key aspect of precipitate is the swiftness and often direct causality implied one event rapidly bringing about another, frequently an undesirable consequence. It suggests an accelerating force where an action or circumstance acts as an immediate trigger, leading to an abrupt outcome. When you hear precipitate in news reports of breaking events, the urgency in the speaker's voice or the immediate follow-up to the event described emphasizes this rapid chain of cause and effect. It's an expedited, sometimes unwelcome sequence.
Triggering something suddenly. Follow political news or scandal reports, and you'll find numerous examples of events that precipitate sudden outcomes or dramatic changes. Listen for that direct, immediate cause and effect relationship. Our next word is preclude. This means to prevent something from happening or to make it utterly impossible. The heavy rain precluded any possibility of holding the outdoor concert.
The important nuance here is the absolute nature of preclude. It implies a definitive barrier or impossibility, not just a difficulty or an obstacle. It means to effectively rule out or stop something from occurring, often due to an insurmountable condition. When you hear preclude in discussions about event planning or scientific experiments, the decisive tone of the speaker underlines the finality of the prevention. There's no workaround. It's simply not possible.
Makes it impossible. Listen to event planning or weather-related discussions. When conditions are described as precluding an outcome, listen for that sense of total, undeniable prevention. Moving on to precocious, this describes someone having developed certain abilities or proclivities at an earlier age than usual, particularly intellectually or artistically. The precocious child could read complex novels by age 6?
Yes, the striking element of precocious is the surprising early emergence of abilities, often considerably beyond what's typically expected for a given age. When you listen to stories about gifted children, the speaker's tone often conveys admiration, even wonder, at the rapid and notable maturation of skills. It's about a brilliance that appears ahead of its time, and hearing the word carries that sense of awe for early talent.
Ahead of their years. Explore education or child development podcasts. You'll hear precocious in stories about gifted children and their remarkable ahead-of-schedule achievements. Next, predilection. This means a preference or special liking for something, often an inherent or strong inclination. She had a predilection for classical music over contemporary genres.
Right. The nuance of predilection lies in suggesting a natural inclination, a deep-seated favoritism or bias towards something specific rather than just a casual like. It implies an ingrained or inherent leaning towards a particular choice or taste that consistently emerges. When you hear someone describe their predilection for a certain art form or cuisine, listen to the passion or conviction in their voice, revealing a deep, almost unchangeable preference that shapes their choices. A strong preference. Listen to music review podcasts or cultural discussions. You'll frequently hear predilection when people describe their personal, often strong preferences or leanings. Now for preeminent. This means surpassing all others, very distinguished or outstanding in some way. He was the preeminent expert in his field of research. Exactly. The compelling aspect of preeminent is the absolute superiority it implies, being the standout, the most distinguished figure in a given area. It signifies not just excellence, but a level of prominence and authority that truly places someone or something above all others in their domain, making them largely unmatched. When you hear preeminent used in academic or professional profiles, the speaker's tone often conveys immense respect and recognition for unparalleled achievement.
The very best. Tune in to academic or professional profiles that highlight top experts in their fields. You'll frequently hear them described as preeminent, emphasizing their supreme authority. Our next word is presumptuous. This means failing to observe the limits of what is permitted or appropriate, often by being overly bold or assuming. It was presumptuous of him to assume he would get the promotion.
When does confidence tip into presumptuous? It's when one oversteps, assuming privileges, knowledge, or outcomes without proper justification, often revealing a lack of humility or respect for boundaries. When listening to workplace etiquette discussions, notice the subtle shifts in tone that convey disapproval for someone who has taken too much for granted or spoken out of turn. The word points to an unwarranted boldness, a sense of entitlement that can be off-putting.
Overstepping boundaries. Listen to workplace etiquette discussions or HR podcasts. You'll find examples of behaviors that might be considered presumptuous, often accompanied by a tone of mild censure. Then we have pretentious. This describes attempting to impress by affecting greater importance, talent, or culture than is actually possessed. The pretentious art critic used unnecessarily complex vocabulary.
Right. The heart of pretentious lies in the element of performance, a deliberate attempt to project an image of intellect or importance that isn't quite authentic. It contrasts sharply with genuine sophistication, highlighting the artificiality and often transparent nature of the effort to impress. When you hear pretentious used, especially in a critique, the speaker's tone might convey a dismissive or even mocking quality, underscoring the insincerity of display. It's about putting on airs that don't quite convince.
Trying to seem more than you are. Explore art or literary critique podcasts. You might hear pretentious used to describe exaggerated commentary or overly complex language that serves no real purpose beyond self-aggrandizement. Next, prevalent. This means widespread in a particular area at a particular time, commonly occurring. Flu was prevalent in the community during the winter months.
Yes. The utility of prevalent lies in helping us understand the current state or commonality of something within defined boundaries, whether geographic or temporal. It signifies that something is commonly found or occurring throughout a specific region or period, indicating its widespread presence. When you hear prevalent in health or social science discussions, the word often comes with data or statistics that reinforce its widespread nature, making the concept immediately tangible in the listener's mind.
Common in a specific place or time. Listen to health or epidemiology podcasts for discussions of widespread issues or diseases. Prevalent will be a key descriptor, often backed by contextual details. Our next word is prevaricate. This means to speak or act in an evasive way, often to mislead without direct lying. The witness tried to prevaricate when asked direct questions.
What's truly interesting about prevaricate is the calculated avoidance it implies. It's not outright lying, but artfully sidestepping the truth. Prevarication involves deliberate ambiguity or misdirection to avoid giving a direct answer, often to conceal something or to avoid committing to a statement. In courtroom dramas, listening to how a witness hems and haws, uses indirect phrasing, or shifts responsibility, these are the auditory cues that scream prevarication. The speaker's tone might indicate frustration with the evasion.
Beating around the bush. Tune into courtroom dramas or legal interviews. You'll easily recognize prevaricate when characters or interviewees engage in evasive, non-committal language. Moving on to pristine. This means in its original condition, unspoiled and immaculate, the pristine wilderness area had never been developed or disturbed.
Yes. Beyond just being clean, pristine conveys a state of original, untarnished perfection, a pure and unblemished quality often found in nature that has been preserved from human interference. When you hear pristine describing a natural environment in a conservation podcast, the narrator's voice often carries a sense of awe and reverence, emphasizing its untouched, ideal beauty. The auditory experience heightens the sense of original purity in a perfect condition.
Untouched, perfect. Explore conservation or environmental podcasts for descriptions of untouched nature or preserved habitats. Pristine will be a common and evocative descriptor. Then we have probity. This refers to integrity and uprightness, impeccable honesty. The judge was known for his probity and fair treatment of all cases.
Right. The depth of probity lies in its implication of unwavering adherence to moral principles, a profound and unshakable honesty, particularly crucial in positions of power or trust. Probity signifies impeccable moral character and scrupulous integrity. When you hear probity discussed, especially in legal or ethical debates, the speaker's voice will convey deep respect, emphasizing the unwavering reliability and high ethical standards of the individual. It's about a consistent, profound commitment to what is right.
Strong moral integrity. Listen to legal or ethical discussions, particularly when figures of authority or public service are being discussed. Probity will highlight their unimpeachable character. Our next word is proclivity. This means a tendency to choose or do something regularly, a strong inclination. He had a proclivity for arriving late to important meetings.
What's interesting about proclivity is that it suggests an ingrained, almost innate inclination, something that feels naturally part of an individual's character or behavior. It's a leaning or predisposition towards a particular behavior, often a habitual one, that is part of one's inherent nature rather than just a learned habit. When you hear proclivity discussed in a psychological profile, the speaker's tone often implies an unchangeable, almost unavoidable tendency, making its inherent nature clear.
A natural tendency. Tune into behavioral psychology or workplace culture podcasts. You'll hear proclivity used to discuss deep-seated, often habitual tendencies in human behavior. Next, procrastinate. This means to delay or postpone action, to put off doing something. We all know this one. Students often procrastinate when faced with difficult assignments.
Well, yes. The profound insight into procrastinate is the internal struggle it embodies, the knowing delay, despite understanding the clear need for action. It's a universally relatable human behavior, driven by various psychological factors. When you hear procrastinate discussed in a productivity podcast, the speaker might use a sympathetic but firm tone, recognizing the commonality of the struggle while emphasizing strategies to overcome it. Hearing the word often reinforces the very act of putting things off, a behavior we all know.
Putting things off. Listen to productivity or time management podcasts. Procrastinate will be a core term in discussions about overcoming delays and improving efficiency, often with practical solutions. Moving to prodigal. This means spending money or resources freely and recklessly, wastefully extravagant. The prodigal heir squandered his inheritance within a few years.
Yes, the key insight distinguishing prodigal from mere generosity is its destructive, reckless wastefulness, often leading to depletion and ruin. A prodigal person spends with an utter disregard for future consequences, characterized by excessive and irresponsible extravagance. When you hear prodigal used in a historical biography, the speaker's tone will convey a sense of moral judgment or regret, highlighting the folly and eventual downfall brought about by such unchecked spending. It's about a grand but ruinous squandering.
Wasteful spending. Explore financial planning or historical biographies for stories of reckless spending or inherited wealth being squandered. Listen for the cautionary tone that accompanies this word. Our next word is prodigious. This means remarkably or impressively great in extent, size, or intensity, inspiring wonder. The athlete's prodigious talent was evident from childhood.
Right. The striking quality of prodigious is the sheer magnitude it implies an ability or quantity so immense it inspires genuine wonder and admiration. It conveys something truly exceptional and beyond the ordinary, often used to describe remarkable talent, effort, or an extraordinary amount of something. When you hear prodigious used in a sports commentary or an artist's biography, the speaker's elevated tone and emphasis clearly convey the awe-inspiring greatness and rarity of the achievement.
Impressively huge or great. Listen to sports podcasts or athlete interviews for tales of exceptional talent or record-breaking achievements. Prodigious is often used to convey that sense of awe-inspiring greatness. Then we have profane. This can mean relating to that which is not sacred or religious, or more commonly referring to vulgar or offensive language. The profane language in the movie earned it an adult rating.
The nuanced understanding of profane lies in recognizing its two primary uses based on context. Firstly, that which is worldly and not religious, distinguishing it from the sacred. Secondly, and more frequently in modern usage, language that is offensive or blasphemous, breaking social taboos. When you hear profane in a movie review, the speaker's tone might express disapproval or simply clinical classification, signaling its nature as either offensive speech or secular content. The context will make its meaning clear.
Okay, so either non-religious or offensive. Tune into movie reviews or censorship discussions for examples of its usage regarding language or content. How is the speaker's tone indicating which meaning of profane is intended? Next, profligate. This also means recklessly extravagant or wasteful in the use of resources, often implying moral dissipation. The profligate spending habits led to massive debt accumulation.
Yes. What's compelling about profligate is the intense irresponsibility it implies, not just spending, but a destructive, uncontrolled squandering of resources, frequently paired with moral dissolution or depravity. While similar to prodigal, profligate often carries a stronger connotation of moral looseness alongside the financial recklessness. When you hear profligate used in an economic history podcast, the speaker's grave tone or emphasis on consequences underlines the severe, unsustainable nature of such waste.
Extremely wasteful, maybe even immoral. Listen to personal finance or economic history podcasts. You'll find discussions of individuals or societies characterized by profligate spending and the severe repercussions that follow. Our next word is profound. This means very great or intense, having deep insight or understanding. The philosopher's profound thoughts influenced generations of thinkers.
Right. The true insight into profound is its capacity to penetrate beyond the superficial, reaching a fundamental truth or insight. It conveys significant depth, whether of emotion, thought, or impact. When listening to a profound thought in a philosophy podcast, you can hear the weight the speaker gives it, the pause before or after, the deliberate intonation that conveys its gravity and intellectual significance. It's not just the words, but the delivery that signals its true depth, something a written page can't fully capture.
Deep and meaningful. Explore philosophy or intellectual history podcasts for deep insights and analyses. You'll frequently hear profound used to describe ideas that resonate deeply and leave a lasting impression. Moving on to profuse. This means abundant, existing in large quantity, overflowing. She offered profuse apologies for the misunderstanding and confusion.
Yes. The essence of profuse is the sheer abundance it conveys, an outpouring that leaves no doubt about its quantity or sincerity. Whether it's apologies, praise, or even sweat, profuse emphasizes a generous or overwhelming quantity, indicating an ample and often overflowing amount. When you hear profuse used in a customer service scenario, the speaker's tone might convey either genuine regret for apologies or perhaps a slight exasperation for overabundance. Hearing the word in context helps you gauge the nature of the abundance.
Lots and lots of something. Listen to customer service or interpersonal communication discussions. You'll hear profuse used to describe abundant expressions of feeling or quantity, sometimes even overwhelming. Then we have prolific. This describes someone present in large numbers or quantities, especially in terms of creative output, highly productive. The prolific author published dozens of novels during her career.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The broader application of prolific celebrates the consistent and abundant generation of something, often of high quality, especially in creative fields. It's commonly used for artists, writers, or creators who produce a remarkable volume of work, highlighting their extraordinary creativity and output. When you hear prolific in a literary podcast, the speaker's tone will often convey admiration for the sheer volume and consistency of the creator's work.
Highly productive, especially creatively. Tune into literary podcasts or author interviews. You'll often hear prolific used to describe highly productive creators, emphasizing their impressive output. Our next word is propensity. This is an inclination or natural tendency to behave in a particular way, a predisposition. Children have a natural propensity for learning languages quickly.
The compelling aspect of propensity is the innate lean or predisposition. It implies a natural pull towards a certain behavioral learning that feels deeply ingrained. While similar to proclivity, propensity often suggests a more fundamental, inherent bent or predisposition, a natural likelihood or tendency that is deeply ingrained. When you hear propensity in a discussion about human behavior, the speaker's tone often conveys the almost unavoidable nature of this inclination.
An inherent tendency. Listen to child development or linguistics podcasts. Propensity will frequently appear when discussing natural inclinations or aptitudes, particularly those observed consistently. Next, propitious. This means giving or indicating a good chance of success, favorable or auspicious. The sunny weather was propitious for the outdoor wedding ceremony.
Right. The core insight into propitious is that it implies a fortunate alignment of circumstances, suggesting that success is highly likely or that the timing is particularly advantageous. When you hear propitious in discussions about planning events or launching ventures, the speaker's tone will often convey optimism and confidence, emphasizing how conditions are perfectly aligned to support a positive outcome. It signals an opportune moment, a moment ripe for success.
Favorable, like good timing. Explore event planning or weather-related discussions. You'll hear propitious used when conditions are ideal for a successful outcome, often with an encouraging tone. Moving on to propriety. This means the state or quality of conforming to conventionally accepted standards of behavior or morals, decorum. She always maintains strict propriety in her professional interactions.
Yes. The subtle but significant aspect of propriety is its emphasis on adherence to unspoken rules of conduct, ensuring one's behavior is always fitting and appropriate within a given social or professional context. It highlights conformity to established norms of decorum and good conduct, particularly in formal settings. When you hear propriety discussed in a workplace etiquette podcast, the speaker's measured tone and emphasis on correctness will underscore the importance of observing these unspoken rules for professional respect.
Following the accepted rules of behavior, listen to workplace culture or etiquette podcasts. Propriety will be a key term in discussions about appropriate professional behavior and maintaining decorum. Our next word is prosaic. This means having the style or diction of prose, lacking poetic beauty, imaginative flair, or excitement, ordinary. His prosaic writing style failed to capture the reader's imagination.
In literary criticism, prosaic highlights the absence of art or elevated language, often signaling a dry, uninspired delivery. It refers to writing that is factual and straightforward, sometimes to the point of being dull or unimaginative, lacking any spark or excitement. When you hear prosaic used in a book review, the speaker's voice might sound unenthusiastic or even disappointed, perfectly conveying the lack of imaginative appeal they found to the work. The lack of vibrancy in the spoken word often mirrors the dullness described.
Ordinary, dull, uninspired. Tune into literary critique or writing workshops for discussions of style. Prosaic might be used to describe writing that, frankly, just doesn't quite take flight. Then we have protract. This means to prolong, to extend the duration of something, often to an undesirable or unnecessary length. The negotiations were protracted and lasted for several months.
Right. The compelling aspect of protract is the implication of stretching something out, often beyond what is desired or necessary, leading to a prolonged and sometimes tedious duration. It suggests an undesirable or unnecessarily long extension of time or a process. When you hear protract in a news report about stalled diplomacy, the speaker's tone might convey frustration or weariness, emphasizing the prolonged and perhaps difficult nature of the process.
Dragging something out too long. Listen to diplomacy or business negotiation podcasts. You'll hear protract used when discussions or processes become unexpectedly long or drawn out, often past their welcome. Next, prudent. This means acting with or showing care and thoughtful foresight for the future. Wise. It would be prudent to save money for unexpected emergencies.
Yes. What defines a decision as prudent? It's a thoughtful consideration of future implications, acting with caution and sound judgment. Prudent behavior is characterized by foresight and practical wisdom, especially regarding financial matters or potential risks, ensuring well-thought-out actions. When you hear prudent in a financial advice podcast, the speaker's calm, reassuring tone often reinforces the wisdom and careful planning inherent in the word, making the advice feel sensible and reliable.
Wise and careful, thinking ahead. Explore financial planning or risk management podcasts. Prudent will be a central concept in discussions about making smart, future-oriented decisions. Our next word is puerile. This means childishly silly and trivial, often in a way that is inappropriate for a mature context. His puerile jokes were inappropriate for the serious business meeting.
The interesting element of puerile is the almost contemptuous dismissal. It implies it's just a level of immaturity that is entirely out of place in a mature or serious setting. It characterizes behavior, remarks, or attitudes that are foolish, immature, and lacking in adult seriousness, often making them seem ridiculous. When you hear puerile used in a discussion about workplace behavior, the speaker's tone will often convey a distinct sense of mild disgust or exasperation at the childishness.
Childishly silly, immature. Listen to workplace behavior or humor analysis podcasts. You might hear puerile used to describe humor or actions that miss the mark due to their stark immaturity. Moving on to pugnacious. This means eager or quick to argue, quarrel, or fight, characterized by a combative nature. The pugnacious debater never backed down from an intellectual challenge.
Right. When you think of pugnacious, picture a spirited, often relentless approach to contention, always ready for a verbal sparring match. It highlights a combative nature, a readiness for conflict, particularly in verbal exchanges or intellectual debates. When you hear pugnacious used in political commentary, the speaker's tone might convey a mix of admiration for tenacity or exasperation for constant argument, depending on their perspective. The word itself carries a sense of energetic combativeness.
Eager to argue or fight. Tune into debate or political commentary podcasts. You'll frequently hear pugnacious used to describe forceful or argumentative personalities, particularly those who thrive on intellectual sparring. Our next word is punctilious. This means showing great attention to detail or correct behavior, extremely precise. The punctilious secretary ensured every document was perfectly formatted.
Yes. The striking quality of punctilious is the unwavering commitment to exactness, to getting every minute detail perfectly right, reflecting a deep sense of duty and conscientiousness. It implies meticulousness and strict adherence to rules, proper procedure, or details, demonstrating a high standard of precision and correctness. When you hear punctilious describing someone, the speaker's tone often conveys admiration for their thoroughness and dedication to flawless execution, underscoring their exceptional standards.
Extremely careful about details and rules. Listen to administrative or professional skills podcasts. You'll find punctilious used to describe individuals who maintain exceptionally high standards in their work, leaving no room for error. Then we have pungent. This means having a sharply strong taste or smell, often intense and stimulating to the senses. The pungent aroma of garlic filled the kitchen during cooking.
Right. What defines a pungent sensation? It's that sharp, often penetrating quality that instantly grabs your attention through taste or smell. Pungent describes an odor or flavor that is distinctly strong, intense, and often stimulating to the senses, sometimes in an unpleasant way, but often simply powerful. When you hear pungent used in a cooking show, the speaker's voice might reflect the intensity of the smell, emphasizing its immediate and strong impact on your senses.
Strong, sharp smell or taste. Explore cooking or food culture podcasts for sensory descriptions. Pungent will often be used to describe distinct and strong aromas or flavors that truly make an impression. And finally, our last word for today, quaint. This means attractively unusual or old-fashioned, often with a charming appeal. The quaint village cottage charmed visitors with its rustic appeal.
Yes. The compelling aspect of quaint is the blend of unusual and old-fashioned that creates a distinct, often delightful charm. It suggests a unique, almost picturesque quality that sets something apart, often evoking a sense of nostalgia or a gentle, appealing peculiarity. When you hear quaint used in a travel podcast, the speaker's voice will likely convey a sense of gentle affection or admiration for something that is pleasantly out of the ordinary, inviting you to appreciate its charming individuality.
Charmingly old-fashioned or unusual, listen to travel or architecture podcasts for descriptions of charming places or historical sites. Quaint will often capture that attractive, pleasantly old-fashioned appeal.
So drawing all these, 50-plus words together, it becomes profoundly clear, doesn't it? That it's not just what you listen to, but how you listen that makes all the difference in mastering these C2 level words. Passive listening just won't yield the transformative results you're seeking. An engaged, active, and discerning approach is paramount.
Right. So what does this all mean for applying these words in your daily life and practice? Truly cementing them into your active vocabulary. Firstly, the power lies in curating your listening material thoughtfully. That means choosing podcasts, audiobooks, or videos that genuinely align with the context of these advanced words. Immersing yourself in rich environments like nuanced news analysis, sophisticated literature, scientific explanations, or in-depth cultural discussions. Platforms like Spotify, Audible, and YouTube are invaluable starting points for this targeted selection.
Definitely. And beyond mere selection, remember that active engagement is your most potent tool.
Absolutely. While listening, make it a deliberate practice to pause when you hear a target word. Don't just note the word itself, capture the entire sentence it's in and its broader context. This concrete act of writing reinforces your understanding in a powerful way. Additionally, try shadowing, actively repeating sentences containing these words, mimicking the speaker's pronunciation and intonation. You'll start to feel how these complex words naturally roll off the tongue, integrating them into your own spoken fluency.
And next comes contextual analysis. After hearing a word, take a deliberate moment to reflect deeply on its meaning and how it specifically fits the given context. Ask yourself, why this word and not a simpler synonym? If you're unsure about the subtle nuances, that's your precise cue to look them up. This deeper dive solidifies your comprehension, helping you understand not just what it means, but why it matters in that particular usage.
And finally, never underestimate the power of repetition. Revisit the same audio material multiple times. Each subsequent listen will reinforce your recognition of these words in natural speech, making them feel increasingly familiar, easier to recall, and more readily available for your own active use. It's like building muscle memory for your linguistic brain. Okay, now for some specific, high-quality recommended resources to jumpstart your C2 vocabulary journey and put these listening strategies into action. When it comes to podcasts, we strongly suggest the TED Interview for deep dives with influential thinkers, BBC Radio 4 in Our Time for intellectual history and philosophy delivered with academic rigor. Also, The Moth for compelling, richly descriptive storytelling, and Freakonomics Radio for analytical discussions on a wide range of intriguing topics. These are absolute goldmines of C2 language in action.
Absolutely. And for audiobooks, choosing literary classics or nonfiction works by authors known for their sophisticated prose provides a wealth of rich vocabulary embedded within complex and engaging narratives. Think of authors like Malcolm Gladwell or maybe Yuval Noah Harari. These aren't just stories, they're masterclasses in language delivered in a natural flow.
Good suggestions. And for visual and auditory learning combined, academic lectures on platforms like Coursera or educational YouTube channels like Crash Course offer fantastic exposure to advanced language across various subject areas. They present sophisticated ideas with equally sophisticated vocabulary, giving you real-world C2 immersion.
What's truly remarkable here, I think, is the journey you embark on from simply recognizing a word to profoundly integrating it into your mental lexicon, all achieved through the immersive, dynamic power of sound. By consistently engaging with authentic materials and applying these active listening strategies, you will undoubtedly enhance your ability to understand, interpret, and confidently use advanced English.
So what does this all mean for you as you continue your journey with the English language? Consider how mastering these C2 words doesn't just expand your vocabulary. It fundamentally reshapes how you perceive, analyze, and articulate the world around you. Think about the profound impact of nuance and how these words empower you to express complexities and subtleties you might not have been able to before, truly deepening your grasp and expression of thought. It's about opening new doors to understanding and self-expression. We really hope this deep dive has been incredibly insightful and helpful for your English listening practice. If you found value in this discussion, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. We truly appreciate your support as we continue to explore fascinating topics together.